Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my fourth and final look with the Jaclyn Hill and Morphe Vault collection. Today I'm going to be using the Armed and Gorgeous palette, and I have not swatched or touched or anything with this palette. This is the sheet that came out of it. This is what the palette looks like. It is very, very gorgeous. I think this is probably my favorite palette in the whole collection just because it's very wearable, yet it still has like this pop of green and these beautiful shimmers. So I really like this palette and I'm excited to create a look with it today. But before we get started, I wanted to go ahead and show you guys what I had on the rest of my face to kind of complete this look. So for foundation today, I used the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Glow in the shade 202 Creamy Natural, and I mixed it with the LA Girl Pro Coverage High Definition Longwear Illuminating Foundation in white. This is the mixer that I use. This is the right undertone. It's just a little bit too dark for me, so I have to mix those two together. Then for under eye concealer, I use the Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer, and I use that in the shade Snow. To set my under eyes, I use the RCMA No Color Powder, and I actually have it in my Maybelline Fit Me container just to make it a little bit easier to use the powder. I also like the Maybelline Fit Me powder if you're looking for a good under eye setting powder. For bronzer, I use the Too Faced Sweethearts bronzer in the shade Sweet Tea. For blush, I use Milani's Rose d'Oro. And for highlight, I used the Benefit Watts Up Cream Highlighter with the Smashbox and Casey Holmes Spotlight Palette in Pearl over the top. For brows, I used the Anastasia Dip Brow Pomade in the shade Taupe and the A14 brush to put it on. And I set that with the Essence Make Me Brow in Soft Brownie Brow. On my lips, I have the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte Liquid Lipstick in the shade Nudist. In the center of that, I have the Maybelline 535 Purely Nude Matte Lipstick. So that's what I have on the rest of my face. I'm going to get right into this palette. I am going to be using Morphe brushes today. I used them in the last palette look and I had no trouble, so I am going to be using those today. They do look stained, but I have use the color switch on them to clean them off and everything like that, so there's no shadow on them or anything like that. They just are stained right now. Comparing the original Jaclyn Hill palette to the Armed and Gorgeous palette, this is what it looks like. I think that the Armed and Gorgeous palette is probably the most unique palette out of the entire collection because there's not hardly any shades that look the same. These orange shadows here are very warm toned. They're very orange in the original palette. They have kind of a neutral warm, but they're not leaning orange. So I think this is a very unique palette. This shade right here called VIP is beautiful. I'm really excited to use that on my inner corner. And then of course the green shade, there's nothing like it in the Jaclyn Hill palette. But I am just going to go ahead and get started, and if you want to see me use the Armed and Gorgeous palette to create a look today, then let's just go ahead and get started. Okay, with the Morphe M441, I'm going to pick up this shade right here called Access. It is a very like creamsicle color. It's orangey, but it's also got hints of yellow in it. So I'm just going to take this and pick it up, and I'm getting a little bit of kickback, more than normal, more than the other palettes. And I'm just going to take this shade and I'm just going to run it right here into the crease. I really like this shade. It is very, very pretty and it's blending out super, super well. It is really pigmented for a lighter shade like that, like a transition shade. It is really, really pigmented. So I'm just going to go ahead and take that same shade and put it right there on the outer corner as well. I'm just going to take a clean Morphe M524 and I'm just going to buff out those edges just so I don't take the color up way too high. Just like my other tutorials, I am just going to focus on one eye and then I'll do the other eye off camera. But that shade blended out really well. I'm going to take a Morphe M513 and I'm going to go into this shade right here called Secure. It is a very orange. This is a true orange shade. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit on the tip of this brush and I'm going to take it on the outer corner. And I'm just going to work it into the outer corner and the crease. This brush is just a little bit more pointed than the M441 and it's a little bit more fat on the edges. And the brushes all kind of taper down. They get shorter on the sides and longer in the middle. So this helps disperse the color and also blend at the same time. I'm going to go back into the M441 and I'm going to just blend the edges of that just so we don't lose the first transition shade. And I'm really liking the way that this is looking right now. With the Morphe E18, I'm going to take that shade called Secure and I'm going to just run it right on the lower lash line. One thing I love about this brush is that it's so soft and it's so small, it just fits perfectly right under the lower lash line. I'm going to go back in with that original fluffy brush, that M441, and I'm going to take a little bit of Access and I'm just going to blend that out. I'm going to go back with that E18 and I'm going to take this beautiful olive green shade here called Top Secret, and I'm also going to run that on the lower lash line as well. I'm going to pack that one on pretty heavily. I didn't want the lower lash line to be like all green, so that's why I put those colors there first. I'm not having any trouble with the blending of this shadow at all, and there's not any kickback in the pan. I'm going to go in with that Morphe M513 and I'm going to go back into that shade called Secure, and I'm just going to blend that green out and bring that orange down pretty far. Go back in with the E18 with no additional product and just blend over the green. And moving back onto the top lash line, I'm going to go into this shade right here called Agent. It is a very caramel orange. It kind of makes me think of candy corn, if you know what that is. I'm just going to take it on the M433 and I'm going to just get a little bit on the brush and I'm going to run it in the same exact places as I've been running those other shades. Just continually just deepening up this outer crease. I'm going to go in with that M513 that I had the Secure orange shade on, and I'm just going to blend those edges. And I'm going to take the original fluffy brush, the M441, and I'm just going to blend out everything. Taking that M433 again, and I'm going to take this really warm tone brown shade here called Smooth Criminal, and I'm just going to pack that on the brush and go right back into that outer corner and just deepen everything up. I am getting a good bit of fallout from this shade, and it's not packing on exactly like I would want it to. I'm going to go back into that M513 and I'm just going to blend those edges out. It's definitely deepening the crease, but it's not doing what I thought it would do just based on the color of the shadow. And I did get a lot of fallout from that shade. I am going to take that big M524 and I'm just going to blend the edges of everything. It's the clean brush. Now I'm going to go back in with that E18 and I'm going to go into the shade right here called Proud. It is the deepest shade in the palette. It is more of a neutral brown, and I'm just going to pack that right Okay, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but this shade right here, I'm not getting any pigment on my lid, and it's actually blending some of the other shadows away, which is really disappointing actually. Let me try a different brush. I'm going to go in with that M433 and I'm just going to put it on the end of this brush. There's a good bit of fallout with this shade as well, which is kind of strange, like I had with the other shadow. Yeah, it's literally not going on my lid at all, hardly. I have never had this problem with any kind of palettes, and it is literally blending right away. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see that. I might try and zoom in and get you guys to see that, because that is so strange. I've never had that trouble with a shadow before, but I know that that is the exact same thing that was happening to a lot of other people. But that is literally not even sticking to my lid at all. It's kind of sticking in the crease, like right in here. And if I blend that shade right in there, it is sticking. I'm just trying to blend this. It literally looks really bad. Okay, I am having a lot of trouble. I'm gonna try and zoom in. Okay, I zoomed in just a little bit and hopefully you guys can see a little better. You can see that that shade is right there in my crease, but I packed it right there on the lid and there's literally nothing there. It actually took the pigment away right there that was on my lid, like with the other shades, and like even when I blend over this now, it's literally still taking the pigment away. And I've never had that problem with any of the other palettes. I've never had it with the original palette, but I cannot get that pigment to stick on my lid. I am going to try one more thing. I think I'm going to wipe this all off and I'm going to come back and I'm going to prime my lids with the MAC paint pot in soft ochre, and I'm not going to set it, and I'm going to see if that makes a difference. But hopefully you guys can see that. It is definitely not sticking at all. It would be fine if I was doing an entire cut crease across my lid, but that's not what I want to do today. But every other shade has blended except for that Prowl shade and Smooth Criminal a little bit, just the two darkest shades, which really kind of irks me that you couldn't create an entire look with this palette because of that problem. But I'm gonna just swatch them. Both of those are swatching just fine. They don't look patchy at all or anything. But on my eye, that just looks terrible. That looks really, really bad. So I'm going to wipe this all off and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to try it again. So let's try this again. I'm back and I'm going to just leave this zoomed in. I haven't primed my lids yet. I went ahead and just left the lower lash line on this eye because it's what I wanted and it doesn't look bad. And I'm probably not going to touch it anymore. But I am just going to take the MAC paint pot in the shade Soft Ochre and I'm going to prime both lids, and I'm not going to set it. I'm going to wait just a minute for it to kind of set down on its own, and then I'm going to go in with the shades and I'm just kind of going to do like a packing motion and then a blending motion. But we're going to see if I can make these shades work a little bit better. But this is the exact trouble that people were having in other videos that I watched, but not with that specific palette. I haven't seen anybody have trouble with that palette or with this palette. And I'm kind of disappointed because this one was my favorite one in the whole collection. But if it's just those two shades that are not performing as well as I want them to, I could easily find other shadows that are kind of the same color. I probably could find them in her original palette, so it's not that disappointing. But if I'm going to spend the money on it, then it is disappointing. I may try to buy another one of the Armed & Gorgeous palettes from Morphe's website just to see if I have the same trouble. And if I do, then I would reach out to Morphe and tell them I'm having a lot of trouble with the palette. But I am going to just go ahead and prime my lids. I'm going to take it on my finger, my ring finger, and I'm just going to go over my lids. Now that I've let that sit just a little bit, I'm going to be doing the exact same thing that I did first, starting with the lighter shades and going into the deeper ones. If I do have the same trouble again, I have found some shades in her original palette that are almost the same, kind of close. The shade Smooth Criminal right here is the one that is really unique, and it's not in her original palette. But I will say, as I was swatching these shades, they feel a lot more powdery than even the other palettes, and they feel totally different from her original palette. So that is something to keep in mind, that they do feel a lot different than the original palette. The ones in her original palette feel very buttery smooth, and these feel pretty chalky. But I did not have that in any of the other palettes. They all feel pretty buttery smooth like her original palette. Okay, I'm going to take the Morphe M441. I'm going to go into that shade called Access. going to tap off the excess. And then I'm just going to start blending this right into the crease. Not setting this base makes the shadows a little more pigmented than they would appear if you didn't set your lids. Or if you did set your lids, I mean. I am just going to leave this shadow like this. I'm not going to take it down on the outer corner like I did originally. Okay, now taking a Morphe M513, I'm going to go into that shade right there called Secure. Going back with that original fluffy brush and just blending the edges of that. And I'm not having any problems with the blending of these two shadows. They both look great. They're not sticking anywhere weird. They're just blending out really, really well. So I'm not having any trouble with those. I'm going to go into the Morphe M433 and I'm going to take that shade right there called Agent. I'm just going to deepen up the outer corner with that shade. And I'm going to bring it down onto the lid right there. And going in with a clean Morphe M524 and just buffing out the edges of everything to get a little fallout with that shade that I didn't notice last time, but it's still blended okay. Okay, I did pull out one of my Amazon brushes that I have from a brush set from there, just in case I needed to try that. So I'm going to go in with that clean fluffy brush from the Amazon set, and I'm going to go into Smooth Criminal, and I'm really nervous about this. It is picking up on the brush just fine. And I'm just going to just place this right here on the outer corner. It's deepening it up, but it's not sticking exactly the way I want it to. But it does look a little better than the first time. I'm just blending out the edges of that shade. Okay, I'm going to go in with this domed fluffy brush from another Amazon set. You guys have seen this. And I'm going to go into that shade called Prowl. And this is a shade I had the trouble with. So I'm going to see if it picks up any different on this brush. It looks like there's pigment on there. It looks like it's pretty full pigment. I'm just going to take the shade and I'm going to stamp it right here on the outer corner. I'm picking up a good bit of product and it's really not doing like anything. It's deepening it up, but it's definitely not looking like this shade should look like, just considering how deep it is. Just going to go in with that brush that I had Smooth Criminal on. I'm just going to blend those edges out. It is blending fairly well. It's just, this look is just a little darker than I wanted it to be. And I'm still getting the fallout. Just taking that big M524 and I'm just blending the edges. Okay, I am going to do a half cut crease. This is about as good as I can get it. This really is weird to me. But like I said, I have seen people having trouble with this. Like this same kind of trouble, but not with this palette. I did get it to work a little bit better using different brushes, but I don't think that you should have to have specific brushes for an eye look. And there's still a whole lot of shadow on the end of this brush. There's a lot of pigment there and it's just not coming off onto my lids the way it should. I really think that for the sake of this video, I am going to do the other eye off camera, but I'm going to come back when I get to the darker shades, and I'm going to use shades from her palette her original palette to deepen it up, just to show you that it should not look like this. They're kind of all muddying together, and I've lost my first transition shade, the access shade, that orange yellow. I've lost it because I have had to pack on so much of that color just to get it to show up. But I'm going to just take my flat shader brush that I usually do with cut creases. I'm going to go into the shade right here called VIP, and I'm going to just highlight the inner corner. See, this shade is so pretty. It is so vibrant and white. And I'm just going to hit under the brow bone with this shade as well. See, that shade is so nice. I don't understand what the problem is with the other colors. I just don't. It's really strange to me. I've had no trouble with the other ones. I am going to take my little concealer brush from that Amazon set, and I'm going to carve out my lid with concealer. I'm going to be using the Too Faced Born This Way, and I'm going to create a half cut crease. This might be a little difficult because I usually have to blend the shadows with the concealer, and since those shadows are not blending right, this may not work very well, but I guess we'll just see. Okay, now that I have that concealer, I'm going to pat over the edges. I'm going to go back in with that domed brush. I'm going to take Smooth Criminal and Prowl, and I'm going to mix the two together on that domed brush. And I'm just going to stamp that right there. Okay, see, this is the weird thing. Okay. I just put that right on the edge of that concealer, and it's deepening that up right there. So that tells me that if I used a stickier base, that they may have come off at full pigment. But now there's like a dark strip in the middle of my eye that I'm just going to have to work with because I can't deepen it up. That looks really bad. I'm really kind of pissed that that looks that bad, because now that shade right there, where I put it over the concealer, looks almost black, and that pisses me off. I'm going to go into her original palette just because this is really pissing me off right now, and I'm going to take this shade right here and the black and mix that together and see if I can just make it the same color as what's in the center of my lid now. Okay, literally nothing is blending over these shadows, which really, really pisses me off. Okay, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to take this shade right here called Guilt Trip. I'm going to take that shade on this brush, and I'm just going to put it over that concealer. I'm just taking a brush and trying to blend those right there. See, and that shade is gorgeous. That gold is so pretty. I'm going to take this shade right here called Classified. It's kind of a bronzy kind of green. And I'm just going to see if I can put it right over where that screw up is. That, again, was not my fault. This is just turning into a mess now. And this is probably the worst eye look I've ever done in my life. Okay. I'm not going to continue with this. I'm not even going to try to do the same thing on the other eye just because I've had so much crap go on with this palette. Okay, so I went ahead and just zoomed out. I just had to stop because I cannot make these shadows work. The only ones that I can make work are the lighter shades and the shimmers. The shimmers are gorgeous. The matte green is gorgeous on the lower lash line. The lighter shades are great, but those darker shades are just, they're not quality. They're not the Jaclyn Hill original palette quality that I got in this palette. The mattes are totally different feeling in this palette from the rest of the collection, and totally different from her original palette. Her original palette is so buttery and smooth and just glides on the eyes super, super well. And I can't work with those shadows, and I apologize that this video went downhill from where it was. I haven't had any trouble like this with the other palettes, but I know that people have had trouble with the palettes doing the same thing. If it's not this palette, it's one of the other ones. The only palette that I have seen that people have had no trouble with is the Ring the Alarm palette, the warm toned one. And I kind of feel like that Morphe may have spent a little bit more time with that palette because it is warm tone and that's what Jaclyn is known for. But this is really disappointing because this palette was my favorite one in the whole collection. I thought that it just kind of screamed fall. It just screamed everyday looks with a pop of green. The shimmers are great, but I just cannot make the two darker shades work. And even when I try to blend darker shades from her original palette over it, it just continues to fluff the product away, which I've never had trouble with. I have already wiped this off once, and I shouldn't even have had to do that the first time because I used the Too Faced Born This Way concealer and set it with RCMA No Color powder for every single one of these. I have had no trouble with setting it with concealer, so it's really disappointing that this palette didn't work out. I have stuff to do after this, so I'm going to have to take this off again, and I'm going to have to create a look with another palette or with her original palette, something, but I just cannot work with these shadows, and I'm disappointed. But I'm sorry this video went to crap, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, if it was enjoyable at all. I don't know if it was or not, but if you will just give this video a thumbs up, that'd be great. Subscribe to my channel. I would not ever steer you to something that I thought that was crappy. And I probably, if I really want to, and I don't really know if I want to or not because it is just two of the shades, I could repurchase just the one palette from either Ulta or Morphe and see if I had the same trouble, see if I could get those two shadows to blend if I bought another palette. If you guys would want to see that, then just leave it in the comments down below. Just let me know. Tell me on Instagram if you think I should do that. It's only $15, so I could do that. I really shouldn't have to do that. All of the palettes should be exactly the same blendability, but you know, stuff happens, and I shouldn't have to say that stuff happens because these should have been fixed immediately and they should be all the same consistency than, you know, as her original palette, for instance, because I know her original palette is a lot of people's favorites, and it's definitely probably my favorite palette of all time. I'm sorry again that this video just kind of had a negative feel about it. I love the shimmer shades in the palette. I love the lighter matte shades and the olive green, but everything else, those two dark shadows, I just can't work with them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope it was helpful. Subscribe to my channel, and I guess I'll just see you guys in my next video. Bye.